Adam's out of town or doing work or something like that. So, or other work. So
something like that.
So Dizzle's in charge this week,
Oh boy.
which is always fun. All right. First question. We got Van from California.
Oh, wait. Before we jump into questions, can we briefly talk about the camp? You got it out on Bunk Bros.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about it on here.
I almost forgot. So we did it at the very end of the Bunk Bros. So yes, go ahead. Hit us with the camp info.
And you said that I feel like you didn't provide all of the context. Because yes, I did say it was life-changing, but
you did.
And it was dramatic. That's because I was tent camping for 2 weeks by myself, no service, like taking a dip in the river every morning, like big runs, big rides every day. It was different.
Okay, that does add to the context. You're right.
But camp is not going to be like that because it's going to be pretty bougie. It's like private chef, massage, yoga led by yours truly. Dylan Johnson is going to be there, ?
He'll be there.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And opportunities.
And it's already half full. So like, y'all better hurry. There's only 6 spots and 3 of them are filled.
Mm-hmm. Big backcountry ride options every day or town trails options. Both groups will be coach led. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure. The house is super cool. It's like this remodeled A-frame. Not that that's relevant, but it does have a sweet hot tub and
it looks
it's in Mount Crested Butte, so the views are insane.
The pictures of the house look pretty cool. Like the house itself looks cool.
Yeah. So.
Any other details?
Oh, I mean, I could talk about it for hours, but if you do want more information, email me at kmedics@ignitioncoachco.com or check the website. But yeah, only 3 spots left, so you won't regret it. Whether you're really trying to get after it and do all the big country or the bigger backcountry rides every day because you're prepping for Leadville or Breck, or if you're just trying to dabble into altitude and have a good time and do the town trails option, totally up to you, but it's going to be super fun. It's the wildflower capital of Colorado. It's so good in the summer. So excited to share it.
I had like barely even heard of Crested Butte until you started talking about this camp, and now
that's
all I hear about is how cool
locals
it is.
Want to keep it that way.
Yeah, I feel like it's a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably way cooler than Townsend, Tennessee. There is some other another important update is if you watch the podcast on YouTube, the videos will no longer be on my personal channel, the Drew Dillman YouTube channel. They're now going to be on the Ignition Coach Co YouTube channel. And that is, I kind of contemplated that, but I think it'd be better that we just put all the videos over there and then I can focus on my personal content on my channel. So they're still going to be on YouTube. You just need to jump over to that channel and subscribe to it. Ignition Coach Co. All right, cool. First question here. Van from California. He starts off by saying he's got a more serious question, so he opted not to send it to the Bunk Bros and sent it to us instead. He's a 42-year-old master cyclist who's got a question related to perceived exertion and mindset, talking about longer events like gravel races. To sum it up, he's raced crits and cyclocross for 15 years, and he really liked the dynamic racing of like attacking and having a lot of fun in that category or that aspect of racing. But now he's getting into gravel racing, and he keeps looking for the same sensations that he would feel in crits and cyclocross, and he keeps blowing up before the finish. He says he's tried pacing, but then the event doesn't even feel like racing, rather a long training ride. When I watch recap videos of these events, the videos show racers who seem to be racing dynamically. Is this type of dynamic racing only for the pros? Am I resigned to just approaching these events as steady efforts? Is there a number of hours or TSS per week where racing gravel dynamically becomes more realistic? Thanks in advance. Podcast is great.
Repeat the last part of the question? What about the TSS?
Is there a number of hours or TSS per week where racing gravel dynamically becomes more realistic? So he's asking, like, does he need to be shooting for some specific number of volume hours in his training or TSS per week in his training? And then once he hits that point, then he'll be strong enough to race more dynamically.
Does he give context about what his current training is?
He says 6 to 8 weeks per hour. He could hold his own in the Cat 3 category for like the last 15 years in crits and cyclocross, but that's it. He's 42 years old.
I don't really think the training is that relevant, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think that if you want to race dynamically in any race, it actually doesn't even matter if it's a gravel race. It could be any race. If you want to race dynamically in a race, then your fitness level, whatever it's at, needs to be on par with the fitness level of whatever the front group of the race is. So in any race, if your fitness level is not on par with the front group, you're not going to be racing dynamically. Like, you're going to be racing to survive. So, and a lot of times in gravel races, there'll just be a mass start, meaning that there will be a front group, but most people will just either be hanging on for dear life to the front group, or they'll be racing their own race. So I don't necessarily think it's a matter of, number of hours or number of TSS. It's just, if you want to feel like you're part of the race, you need to either select a category that fits your fitness level or select races that are going to have people that fit your fitness level. It's all about having a fitness level equal to that of the people that you're racing against, if you want to feel like you're racing.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing about gravel racing, is it's unlike crits and cyclocross. You can't just drop in and select a category. In crits and cyclocross, if you're getting dropped by the Cat 2s, well, you just downgrade to the Cat 3s, and then you become this dynamic racer in the Cat 3 category or whatever. In gravel racing, it's like there's not these categories. I mean, maybe there's distances, and so like I'm thinking of like a Barrier Bay or like an Unbound, where the 200 is the big race, but like if you can't hang in the 200, well, then you drop down to the 100. Like, I've got friends who would just get blown away in the 200, so they drop down to the 100 because it's a more, I mean, this is probably one of the main reasons, is because they can race dynamically and race for the win in the 100-mile, even though that's the wuss category. Dylan like shreds on people who drop down to the 100, but I kind of don't blame him. I mean, if you're in racing to have fun and get this dynamic experience, but getting just dropped by really fast riders, like, maybe it's not worth racing that upper category. Like, maybe you do drop down to a lower distance or whatever.
I think this just proves, sorry, go on.
Well,
I was just going to say, I think this proves that just everyone is different. There's so many of my athletes that I have where it's better for them just to not look at power or heart rate in an event and just go off of feel. But if he's currently doing that and blowing up, then I think he does need to look at each specific event and then set a more detailed plan.
Yeah, and I think finding smaller races, like more local races are going to be less competitive. The bigger national races are going to be more competitive. So I think dipping your toe in with the local races makes sense to, like, if you're maybe not, directly to this guy, but to people who are interested in getting into gravel, like, don't start with a Sea Otter gravel, like, or something massive, like maybe start with a Southeast Gravel Series or something, like a local race where, or like a Karst Crusher, like that's a local race around here where there's only 150 people in that race. You're probably going to have a much better experience because you probably will do better in a smaller local race. And then, you kind of stepstone your way up to those bigger, faster events.
Yeah. I think that the issue with gravel, which I already said, is that most gravel races are mass start. So, I mean, a race that's mass start, the vast majority of the people in that race are just going to be racing their own race. And then there's going to be a small front group that's racing dynamically. And gravel doesn't really have a, like you said, Cat 2, Cat 3, whatever, different categories. They don't separate the masters from the non-masters. They don't separate. Most gravel races don't separate anyone. It's just everyone starts at the same time. And the very nature of everyone starting at the same time means that 90% of the people in the race will not feel like they're racing dynamically.
You know what they should do? Marathons are also mass start. Like the pro marathoners start at the same time as, Joe Schmo there just trying to finish. But you got pacers, and the pacers hold signs. And you got you got your 5:30 miles at the front of the race. But then every, I don't know, 20 yards or whatever is a person with a sign that says 5-minute miles, 6-minute miles, 6:30s. And then you just if your goal is to average 6:30s, and then you just line up in that category. And I think what happens in a lot of those is there ends up being this massive groups of people who are just sticking with the pacer. So you could do that, Cat 1 pros, Cat 1s, Cat 2s, Cat 3s, and then you just line up behind your little category sign, and you basically have a Cat 3 race inside of a mass start race.
Yeah,
it would work.
I think that's a far-fetched idea. I don't think that would work in bike racing.
Work.
No,
it works for marathoners though. Marathons.
I mean, so it works for marathoners that are just trying to finish the race. That's not people trying to have a dynamic race. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I guess most marathoners don't care about dynamic
racing. I mean, a lot of people in gravel are just trying to finish the race too, but it sounds like this particular person is trying to feel like they're racing a bike when they're racing a bike. You know what I mean?
I kind of wonder why are you trying to do gravel?
Yeah, honestly, if you want the feeling that you're racing against other people and being competitive and having a dynamic race, crits and cyclocross is your jam, man. There's no better place to feel like you're having a dynamic race than those two disciplines.
Maybe do a mix of both. I mean, but if you're all about dynamic racing, I would just say keep focusing on crits and cyclocross, and maybe sprinkle some gravel racing in there to satisfy that itch. But
yeah, a 90-minute or less crit race is just, it's never going to feel the same in a gravel race. And that's why I kind of said what I said earlier, set a more detailed plan so that you feel like you are keeping it interesting by executing your plan, or you're sounds cheesy, riding a race within yourself. But if there's nobody around you, I mean, it's not going to feel the same. When you have a little carrot in front of you, you're always going to be able to find that extra gear. Yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, Van, I feel this way a lot in the races that I do. At Sea Otter last week, I was in 100th place 5 minutes into the race. That's not dynamic, dude. The whole race, I was in groups, but not racing dynamic, But if I go to a gravel worlds race where there's a smaller group of pros, then it's way more fun because I actually can race in that front group. So I mean, I get what I totally I relate to what you're saying. A Sea Otter race is not that much fun because it's not dynamic. It was just a gruel all day. But then you dial that back a little bit, like a BWR or something, not such a high level as the Lifetime GP races, and it is a lot more fun. So I can relate to what he's talking about for sure. Maybe Dylan can as well.
I can definitely relate. 100%. I can relate.
You're competitive in some of the Lifetime events. Unbound last year.
Unbound last year, I felt like I was racing dynamically at the front, but honestly, that's rare for me at a Lifetime GP race. So,
yep. Well, keep plugging away, man. And we don't have there. I think Dylan already said this, but I don't think there is a magic number of hours or TSS. I do think that progressive overload is an easy plug right now. If you want to keep getting stronger, you need to always be trying to hit a little more than, you should be building up your hours and building up your TSS in a pretty smart way. But if you keep training the same hours and the same TSS, you're probably not going probably not going to get much faster unless you're really like playing around with what kind of intervals you're doing. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking to get to the next level, you're going to have to commit to bigger hours and bigger TSS, I think, at some point, especially for gravel racing. Maybe not necessarily for crits or cross, but I think for gravel, that's unnecessary. Cool. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
What do we got here? Okay. I deferred my Unbound 200 to 2026 because we recently moved and I was off the bike for about a month and I'd love to finish before sunset. I have about $2,500 budget. All right. So we're going financial here from now till race day. This is, I guess, from now till 2026 since he deferred it towards races and training and coaching. What's more important, coaching or doing more races with a general fitness build or maybe a combo? Context if you want it. Been doing 6 to 8 hours a week with no structure, but I have room for way more volume. If I have peace of mind, I won't end up overtrained. 2025 A race is November. Retired professional golfer. Been training for about a year. FTP roughly 275. Hold on one sec. 35 years old. I've done 2 gravel races, 3 mountain bikes, and did well in gravel and bad in mountain bike. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, and his watts per kilogram sucks. That's what he says. Okay. So he's asking us, what should he spend his $2,500 on over the next year to get the best finishing time, hopefully before sunset at Unbound?
It's basically between doing other races to prepare and coaching. Like, he's not thinking about buying a new bike or something.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So I don't know how important for certain races, I think having races on the calendar to prepare for that race is very important, especially if it's a race where you need to be really good at pack dynamics. For Unbound, I don't know how important that is, especially for a rider that's just trying to beat the sun. I don't know how important it is to have other races under your belt. It can't hurt, but I don't think it's the most important thing in the world. And if you have this budget set where you're like, I can only spend this much on coaching, or I could do these other races to prepare, in my mind, I think it's an obvious choice. You would want to get the coaching. That would be more important than doing other smaller races to try to get race ready for Unbound.
Yeah, agreed. Coaching's the only right answer. If you self-declared that your watts per kilo suck, well, if you're not doing anything to improve that and you're just racing, like, I mean, racing yourself into fitness, yes, but if you don't really understand the training, like,
yeah, it's never a bad thing to have a dress rehearsal for your A race. So if you have a B race, that's a month before your A race, it's always a good thing to have that, because you get used to waking up early in the morning and having the pre-race breakfast and trying to dial in your fueling and try to dial in your pacing, and you get used to riding in a pack and trying to save energy and all of this. Like, some of this you only learn through experience. And if you don't have experience racing, then you might screw it up on the A race day, which you would like to avoid. So there's nothing wrong with having a B race dress rehearsal at all. But I kind of feel like he
has done some racing.
Yeah, he has done some racing. So I kind of feel like if I could choose one or the other, I'm going to go for coaching 100%.
Good. Yeah. I was hoping y'all were going to say that, because this is like a soft pitch for just to not get home run for Ignition Coach Co. I'm sure you guys already said that.
No, we were waiting for you.
Yeah, Ignition Coach Co, dude. And look at this. This is what I love about Ignition, and this is like what we really try to hone in is our coaches are racers. And if you're trying to train for a race, my number one goal is to try to get you connected to a coach that's done that race. And Unbound's a pretty big race, and like half our coaches have, probably not half, but a lot of our coaches have done Unbound or have done races very similar to Unbound and can talk to you about the specifics of a 200-mile race because they've done it. Like they know the nutrition, they know how bad it's gonna hurt when you're 8 hours, 10 hours in and you're like totally fatigued and dehydrated and it's hot and you flat and you want to quit and the whole list of things. So I think that's like our bread and butter is our coaches have really high experience when it comes to races. So, and if you mention this podcast, when you sign up for coaching, there's a little box for a promo code. If you put Matchbox 100, $100 off your first month. Boom. That's like easiest ad read we've ever done. Did you guys how much would coaching be for a year? It would be more than $2,500, I think. Actually, it'd be pretty darn close. It's about $200 a month, so that's like $2,400 for a whole year of coaching.
Yeah, it'd be close.
What if he I don't know. What if he split the money? How would you guys, if he were to say, I wanted to split the money and half of it for coaching and the other half for anything that would make him go faster?
Dude, what if he just took that $2,500 and bought some sick carbon wheels?
Oh, this guy just dropped his microphone.
Mic drop, dude.
So what did you say? You said to spend the money
dude, what if he just took that $2,500 and bought, just some carbon wheels,
You're being sarcastic.
No.
Yeah, you are.
How dope would his bike look,
Because you're saying it doesn't really matter in a race like a 200-mile race like Unbound. That would be a waste of money. Not like a total waste, but like compared to coaching, a waste of money.
Yep. Some would argue it'd be money well spent,
Mm-hmm. What if he was like, all right, I'll spend $2,500, but I just got a good tax return, so I got like an extra $1,500 to spend on gear.
All right, here's what you do: you take that $2,500, you go to Vegas, you put it in the the slot machine or whatever.
You really don't want to answer this question.
Do blackjack, whatever people do in Vegas. I'm not a gambler, so I don't know, but that's what you do. You double your money, you get $5,000, you get the wheels, and you get the coaching.
Dang.
This is all silly scenarios because the only right answer is coaching. If you're training 5-6 days a week, you don't want that training to be pointless.
Yeah.
You don't want to be just like...
I like what Caitlin's saying. Most people think, if I'm only training 6 to 8 hours, well, then I shouldn't get a coach. But what Caitlin is saying is if you only have 6 to 8 hours to train, you need to get like every bit out of that 6 to 8 hours, and having a coach to get the most out of the hours that you have is going to be helpful. And I would argue that getting a coach is probably going to help you to like find more time for training, because now you've invested $2,500 towards coaching, and that coach is probably going to tell you need to up your volume for Unbound. You're probably going to try to find some ways to get some more hours squeezed into your schedule, because now you've invested money into this thing.
I feel like we didn't need to spend so long answering this question.
All right, well then you're going to really like the next question because it's real short. I think it's from the same guy. Scott from Alabama says, short question to keep DJ happy.
Keep me happy?
He says to satisfy DJ because you like the short. Because you like the quick, short questions.
Dang, I didn't even know I had that reputation. Okay.
For endurance sessions, do you guys put the limit on heart rate or power?
Heart rate. So for a long time, I think I was using mostly power as the upper end of my zone 2. But given that zone 2 is physiological, like we're essentially talking about blood lactate levels, and blood lactate and heart rate are highly correlated with one another, I actually think it makes more sense to go off of heart rate, which is a physiological metric.
Compared to power, which isn't.
Yeah.
Power is like It's not physiological. It's like outside of your physiology.
Well, it's output. Like, I guess it's output versus input, right? You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could make the argument both ways. I'm not saying that's like the definite right answer at all. In fact, I probably use a combination of both, if that makes sense. Like, I look at both power and heart rate.
Yeah.
But if I have the upper limit of my zone 2 is 145 beats per minute heart rate. And no matter what my power is, I will try to stay below 145 beats per minute.
Yeah. How did you get 145?
It's been a while since I did it, but I took my
I'll just tell you. I know the answer.
Oh, do you know the answer? What is it?
You're 75% of your max heart rate. That's what I've always said for a couple of years now. Is like using that 75% of your max heart rate is a good endurance ceiling for your...
when I talked to Steven Seiler, he actually had a little bit of a different equation, and that's the one that I used, and I wish I had it off the top of my head right now.
I got 75% of max heart rate from Steven Seiler in a podcast he did.
Okay.
He really didn't want to give like a, that easy of a solution or whatever, but when they really pressed him, he said 75% of max heart rate is a pretty good limit, and that's like that's a good estimate for basically your LT1, which is what you want.
The reason why he didn't want to give a simple solution like that is because it varies from person to person. Like giving a rule like 75% of max heart rate, that will not apply to everyone.
Yeah. But I do think that because it's a ceiling, it's a safe bet to like say, okay, do the math. If my max heart rate's 200, that puts it at 150, 75%. And because it's a ceiling, okay, we'll stay below 150. I think that's...
I have also, and I'm not suggesting that you have to do this, I have also gotten my blood lactate tested during a ramp test, and 145 beats per minute should be right around where I enter zone 2 on the 3-zone model. So zone 1, on a 3-zone model, zone 1 is, quote, zone 2 training. It gets really confusing, but
endurance.
Yeah, exactly. So my first lactate turn point happens at 145 beats per minute based on that testing.
Yeah.
Which if you want to be a perfectionist about it, that's the best way to go about it. Like a simple equation like 75% of your max heart rate will get you close, but it's probably not perfect because everybody's different.
Yeah. And I think Dylan would agree. We're not saying ride at 150. Like, my average heart rate on most of my endurance rides is like under 140. I just don't go over 150. Or if I do, it's just like
the ceiling.
Very minimal time above 150. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything to add, Caitlin? Oh, we can't hear you.
I was trying to do the math and see, because after an athlete tests and we use their 20-minute test after an all-out 5-minute effort, within that 20-minute effort, you take the second bout of 10 minutes, and the average heart rate from that is what we set as your threshold heart rate. And when we plug that into Training Peaks, and specifically using what do we use? We use the lactate threshold and then the CTS for cycling 6-zone model.
Yeah.
When it extrapolates
so I don't like the way the heart rates pop out.
I think it lines up pretty well. It's a broad range, and then that's where I think your threshold is different truly on any given day based on a ton of variables. So that's why like the range is so big. But yeah, you give yourself that heart rate ceiling, then you back check that with your power and RPE, and the order in which you prioritize one metric over the other, I think is dependent on where you're doing your zone 2 ride. Like if you're in a rolling terrain, and it's just hard for you to maintain the pressure on the pedals, or it's hard for you to focus on maintaining a certain power, then yeah, give yourself that heart rate ceiling. If you're inside, depending on how you feel, maybe you stick to the lower end of your zone 2. And I don't want to get into that argument, well, is doing upper zone 2 better or more bang for my buck? No, it's all zone 2.
It's too subtle, yeah.
But
I actually don't like the heart rate zones in Training Peaks, and I've actually made my own numbers. I don't know if they pop up under yours since I don't think they do. I don't know. But I've created my own heart rate training zones, because every time I would always do what Caitlin said, take the second 10 minutes of a power test, you get the average heart rate, you use that as your lactate threshold heart rate, and then the CTS zones create your heart rate zones. And almost every time I did that, the heart rate zone for VO2 was over my max. And I'm like, well, that's like a whole waste of a, that's not right. And so now I've made my own.
Yeah.
Like every time it does that, and I'm like, that's dumb. Like, why is it giving me a whole zone you don't need to be over my max?
Well, I kind of just disregard that, because when you're programming VO2, you're
basically
just
going all out.
Yeah.
So I made my own heart rate zones that are all based off of max heart rate and kind of what I just said. So like all I input is the athlete's max heart rate, and based off that, it gives all the zones. And so for endurance, it would be whatever to 75. I think it's 65 to 75% of max heart rate, and then all the other zones are above that. But then it doesn't give me any zones that are above my max heart rate. That makes sense. So, one more question.
Sure.
All right. Been enjoying the podcast. This is Sam from New York. Been enjoying the podcast for the last few months or so. Last Wednesday, I crashed on a weekly training group ride and I broke my jaw. Bummer. Sorry about that. I fully understand that in this sport, you have to pay the injury toll, but this one is particularly tough, as almost a year ago to the date, I broke my pelvis and was off the bike for 2 months with several more months of rehab. My questions
are... break a bone, you go big. Ow.
Yeah, his pelvis and his jaw.
And jaw.
Both of those are terrible. He's got 2 questions. After 4 months of build, I'll be off the bike for 2 weeks with very light riding for another 3 on the trainer while my jaw is wired shut. Am I doomed to start a base phase from scratch, or will some of that fitness carry over? I was hitting some good form for the first time since my pelvis injury, so it's a real bummer. I will probably be able to do some zone 2 on the trainer, but no intensity, as heavy breathing will be hindered. For context, I'll save the second question until we answer the first. For context, I'm 5'7", 130 pounds. He's already down to 125 because of the new diet. I've been training and racing off and on for 16 years with a focus on mountain biking. Was training 10 to 15 hours a week. I've come to terms with quitting fast group rides, but want to maintain some form of enjoying what riding I can do this season. Thanks in advance. So
yeah, that was my immediate thought, was the weight loss and the diet that you have to adhere to. So
yeah, that's his second question. So his second question is about about calorie intake and all that. So, but we'll answer the first one where it talks about, unless you want me to read the second one, would that help?
Yeah, because
okay. He says, nutrition. So for his second question, it says, how careful do I have to be with any training, as my calorie intake will be very low on an all liquid diet, and I don't want to do more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that is important, because we don't want to give him all this training advice and then also throw in the curveball of like, oh yeah, you're on limited calories, because that would change the training advice. So
I think that it's important that he focuses on coming back from the healing properly from the injury and coming back from the injury before he focuses on anything performance or training related. Now he can ride his bike on the trainer if he's capable of doing that, but like don't put in a massive training block. Like, focus on getting back to full health. Which I that's probably a tough pill to swallow right now, because he said he's at the point where he's just getting back to good fitness after that pelvis injury, and then he has another massive setback. But I think when you try to rush it, you get into problems. And if you try to do big training blocks while you're sick, injured, etc., you run into problems. I while your jaw is wired shut, you can ride on the trainer, you can have light rides on the trainer, but like, I wouldn't even be thinking about training while your jaw is wired shut, personally.
100%. I think your mentality during that time needs to shift from making fitness gains to just moving for the sake of general health and well-being. Because I think making fitness gains, it requires such a demand of meeting nutritional like caloric intake and all of that. And yeah, I think it's kind of risky. I mean, if you just do an endurance ride for 2 hours, like, depending on what your threshold is, like, you're burning like significant, like, probably for a 130-pound guy, like, I don't know, 600 calories an hour just doing zone 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
it's gonna be hard to meet caloric demands even if he's not training at all. So definitely take that into account. Like, I would almost say, like, until he can go back to his regular diet, you can exercise, and you should exercise. You should go for walks. You could do a light ride on the trainer, but I wouldn't train, so to speak, until your diet can get back to normal.
Yeah, I was reading a book by Matt Fitzgerald a couple months ago called The Comeback Quotient. And it talks a lot about how elite athletes have the mental fitness to bounce back from injury or setbacks. So you can read that. I think that's a helpful book with a lot of really good examples. But he talks a lot about it's in that book and another book called Rebound. Rebound isn't by Fitzgerald, it's by somebody else, but both of them are kind of about coming back from setbacks. And I think in both of those books, it talks about the first step being to accept the reality that, like, your new, like, the old goals that you had are no longer your current goals. Like, you kind of have to, like, accept the fact that this really unfortunate thing has happened, and your goals can't stay the same because of this setback or this change in your situation. So I think the first thing is accepting that reality, which, like Dylan said, is a really hard pill to swallow sometimes, but it has to happen. Like, you have to realize, like, okay, I broke my jaw, my goals are going to have to change. So I think the first thing you have to do is that, and kind of reassessing, okay, what goals can I set that are realistic and attainable given this new situation that I'm in? And then, like, the second part in both of these books is, like, basically adapting your plan because of that new reality. And so, yeah, and I think both of you guys have already kind of touched on, like, yeah, I think your number one goal right now, buddy, is to get healthy. And, like, your new goal is your new number one goal is not to like be training for some race. Your new goal now is to recover from this injury. And then once you've recovered, then maybe reassess and start to set goals for events. But I think if you put your head down and you're still determined to try and hit the same goals that you had before this injury, it's going to make it way harder on the whole recovery process. Like, you're just going to feel like you're behind and you're stressed. But if you just, like, adjust your goals and say, okay, now my focus is recovery, then I feel like just from a mental standpoint, you're going to be a lot healthier. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Your body is trying to heal itself. So by trying to push to make fitness gains, you're only going to be working against it at this point.
Yeah.
Based on your circumstance with the nutritional issue. And yeah.
Another kind of question that pops into my head is like, if you guys were coaching this guy and you guys had just spent 4 months of building up for all these goals that he has, and then this happens, would you guys think you would keep coaching him to make sure he doesn't like mess himself up through the recovery process? Or would you say, hey, you're injured, let's take a month or two off to let you heal, and then we'll come back to the training? Like, I don't know. I feel like,
I think as a coach,
yeah, I'm kind of split.
Your job is a guide to come alongside them and meet them where they're at. Use, the whole, what is the quote? Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can.
Whoa. So, say that again. That was good.
Start
That's a tattoo.
Oh gosh, no.
Say it again.
Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can.
I like that. I never heard that before.
Dizzle, you're such a sucker.
I love
for quotes.
Those. I don't know what you call those, but man, quotes? I love those.
Words.
Just quotes. Words. Yeah. That was great. Start where you are. Start where you are. Have what? Use what you have. Do what you can.
I'll text it to you anyway.
We're gonna post that later today.
Yeah, I just, if you cut him off and give him free reign, like that's not. I don't feel like I'm doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Sometimes a coach is there to tell you to not train or not ride your bike. And actually, sometimes that's more important than them telling you to train or ride your bike. If you need it, and some people, when they have an injury like this, they'll pause coaching, which is completely fine.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're in the mindset that this is a break from training and it's a time to heal. But if you need a coach to tell you that, keep your coach while you're injured so that they can tell you that.
Yeah. When I was a new coach, I remember thinking like this wasn't related to injury, but during the off season, when I would give athletes a 2-week period where they don't ride or do anything, I always contemplated giving them a half invoice for that month, because like they didn't ride for half the month. But then exactly what Dylan said, I would remind myself that like, it's better for them to not ride for those 2 weeks. And like part of my job is to make sure I'm doing what's best for them. My job isn't to make them ride. My job is to make them better. And so sometimes not riding makes them better. And so conclusion, I still invoice my athletes when they get the full month.
Yeah. Cool.
Any other I don't know, any other advice about the calorie with the all liquid diet? And I guess we already talked about it a bit.
I don't know. I'm sure his doctor probably gave him advice on what to consume there. Like I'm not an all liquid calorie diet expert, so I'm not,
Yeah. I mean, I think he already knows the truth. He was just hoping that we were going to not
tell it to him.
Because he even says like, will I do more harm than good? And we're all saying probably. Like, if you're already going to be on a calorie cut on an all liquid diet, training's not going to be productive.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose muscle mass.
Do you think he should ride at all?
Yeah, I think he could do light rides on the trainer. I think that'd be fine. I think walks around the neighborhood would be fine. I think things that are going to keep him in like zone 1, maybe low zone 2. I wouldn't even necessarily wear your heart rate monitor or a power meter to check whether you're doing that, but I'm just saying keep it easy, keep it short.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, you need to shift your mindset from being an athlete and making gains. You're still an athlete. That's not what I'm saying, that you're not. But you need to have the mindset of like the general population of I am just moving to move for the sake of wellness.
Yeah. And I would say do that. This is like, I don't know, different. This is something different, but I would even say maybe try to do that earlier in the day. Like, I feel like if you get out and just go for your walk or your easy ride, right, and you start your day off like that, I'm just thinking as an injured athlete, I feel like starting your day off with a little bit of movement is just going to put you in a better mental state, because your mental state is probably going to take a hit, because now you went from being this focused athlete to this injured athlete. So I think like anything that you can do to boost your mental mood, which like getting outside in sunlight and moving a little bit first, like earlier in the day compared to later in the day, is going to set you up for a better mood throughout the day. That's like little advice, but I think that's what I would try to do.
Wow, that's very insightful. Nice job.
And just because I want to annoy Drew, you should go try yoga. It's great. Does wonders for your
like maybe you could start to like venture. You could like, now would be the time to try to maybe incorporate some other things that you didn't do when you were fully focused on the bike, like yoga, because you could do yoga and not have to go super hard, but it's still going to move your body. And I think that's really good advice. Maybe open your eyes to some instability because you're using these different muscles that you don't normally utilize. Yeah. You think you can strength train with a broken jaw? I would actually recommend it. Not like a 45-minute session, not something super heavy, because again, you're not going to be able to replenish everything. But because you are on a calorie restricted diet and you don't want to lose muscle mass, doing like a 15 to 20 minute session, like 3 times a week. Yeah, that would actually, I think, is a good idea. Because you're not going to burn, like, I mean, you're not going to burn a ton of calories in the gym. I would also keep the weights light. Like, don't do max squats. Yeah. Why? Because you're tearing muscle fibers and you're not nutritionally like replacing. If you're already on a calorie deficit. Yeah.
I think what I would be worried about, and I don't know enough about jaw injuries in particular, but injuries in general, sometimes if you do deadlifts or squats, you are straining your whole body so much to the point that I would worry you'd cause more damage
to the jaw.
Potentially. I mean, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror when you're squatting? Your jaw is tense. You
just look at your jawline when you lift. I'm looking at my quads, dude, bro.
Look at your face when you're doing a max squat, man. Your jaw is tense.
Yeah, that is a good point. Like when you're lifting heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you're like, it's just you're not even trying to. It's just you're straining. Yeah, your whole body is straining so hard that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I could see that.
The other thing with this injury, I imagine it's probably going to be a little uncomfortable to sleep. I imagine you're probably going to be a little uncomfortable around the clock. So with just depleted energy hitting you from all angles, don't do anything heavy. Again, you're not trying to make fitness gains. You're moving for the sake of health.
Good advice. Well, cool. I think we fried that fish. That's a new saying. That's a tattoo. All right, cool. I think that's it. If you're interested in the Crested Butte camp, reach out to the website. What are the dates again? July the 8th to the 13th?
Yes.
Cool. And then these will be on separate YouTube channel. And if you have questions, send them into the is it Matchbox Podcast? No, I think it's just matchboxpod@gmail.com. Cool. See you guys next week.
See ya.